Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about peak week. This is an interesting one. One that I have quite a few views about. I don't know how many times I've seen people a week out and look absolutely amazing. And then I've seen them on stage and look nothing like they did the week before. In most cases, people can either look as good or they look worse. It's very rare that I see them look considerably better. But that's not to say that doing all these things in the last week doesn't work. I mean, certainly it depends what you're looking like coming in to the last week. As an example, if you are coming into the last week and you're looking full and dry and it's the best you've ever looked in your life, you've got to ask yourself, how much better do you think you could be? Now, okay, you could heavily deplete, carb up, you could water load, you could do all these things, and you might be 1 or 2% better maybe. But if it goes wrong, you could potentially be 10% worse, which in most cases is what happens. Now, if you come into the week out and you are watery and you're looking flat, then obviously there's things that you need to do. And these things that you can do in the last week can turn it around and certainly get you looking at your best. There's no doubt about that. But it's just when people ruin what they've done by doing too much. So if you come into the last week and, like I said, you're in the best condition you've ever been in and you're looking full and dry because you've come in early and you've basically held the condition for a long time, which I said in the previous video is the best way to do it. We can just subtly deplete and we can carb up and we can pull the water away a little bit and it's job done. People don't do that. They smash the diuretics, they go on 0 carbs for 2 to 3 days, they heavily carb up and they look watery and they don't look good at all. So, you've got to be very careful how much to do. Sometimes doing too much is way worse. You're better off not doing anything in some cases, I know some people that have just gone on as they are, haven't depleted at all, haven't carved up at all, not done anything. All they've done is pulled the water away a little bit at the end and have won major shows. And then you've got the beginner who, is doing all of this and basically ruining it, and it's certainly not going to look any better for doing it. So you've got to be very, very careful. So a lot of people have coaches, and these coaches advise them what to do, and they give them a protocol whether it's needed or not, meaning they'll write it out a few weeks before. This is what you've got to do on the last week. That's not how you can do it. You've got to visually go by it. It could change daily, it can change hourly. So you've got to work with the body and try and sort of ease it into peak condition for that time when you're on stage. The other thing you've got to think about is when I did my first shows, I was on stage first thing in the morning, being a first timer or whatever, whether you're a junior or something, you tend to go on earlier. So, the timing's different, and then you have to, when you start doing the open classes, you might be on late at night, so you've got to take that into consideration. Some people stop water early on, say the show's on the Sunday, they stop it on Saturday early, and then they've got to go all day Sunday. By the time they get to Sunday night, they're just looking awful, looking flat. So, sometimes you have to push everything forward. You've got to, allow for that and look at what time potentially you're going to be on. So there is a lot to this last week, but all I can say is that, I know what I do, what I ended up doing, because I pretty much tried every technique there was. I've tried the fat loading, water loading, reducing water as it gets closer to the show, diuretics, high vitamin C, dandelion root, you name it, we've tried it all. But the best way I think that worked for me is to get ready early, is to level my carbs off, make sure that I'm a week out, and pretty much I'm almost like I want to be on stage. Now obviously then I don't need to do as much because my body's pretty much how I want it. It's just a case then of I just drop the carbs just a little bit for the first half of the week, and then I start putting in the carbs back, and I go on high vitamin C for the last week, and that sort of dries you out, works as a mild diuretic. And then we get to the last couple of days where if I'm not feeling like I'm getting a good pump, I'm not feeling full, I just continue sort of with the carbs, keeping the carbs going in. And then when we get to Saturday, depending on how I wake up, say the show's on the Sunday, if I wake up Saturday morning and I'm bone dry, then I'll just do what I did on that day again. I'm not going to stop water. If I'm a little bit watery, then I'll stop about 6 p.m. If I'm very watery, I could stop in the afternoon. So it really depends on how dry I am when I wake up the day before the show. It's depending when I stop the water. So if I'm holding just a touch of water, normally stop about 6 p.m, get the carbs in prior to 6 p.m, and then I'll let everything settle down, digest them carbs, and then what I'll do is I'll put normally some fats in, maybe a nice steak, handful of chips the night before, and then I'll wake up and we should be pretty game on. Of course, then you've got the problem of holding it. So if you're on late at night, you've got to make sure that mistakes I've made in the past have been that I wake up in the morning and it's absolutely bang on. And then what happens is I forget to eat, or I'm lounging around, I'm not drinking, and by the time the evening comes, I've looked at myself and I'm flat and look awful. So you've also got to maintain that as the day goes on, on show day. So there's a lot to think about. So to be honest with you, if I can give any advice, if you're a week out and it's looking good, leave it alone. That's what I say. But if, there's work to do, if you're watery and you're looking flat or etc., then obviously you need to do what you need to do to try to dry out and hit your peak condition for when you go on stage. So certainly don't, if anyone's going to give you, a coach is going to give you the protocol of what you need to do on the day or the day before, about a week, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, then that's crazy, because that's not the way to do it. You've got to work, everyone's different, and you've got to look at the body a week out and decide what you're going to do. Does it need more carbs? Do you need to pull the carbs down a little bit? Do you need to, are better people water loading? Some people are better not. Are you better off reducing the water as it gets closer to the show? A salt, that's another thing. Some people salt load, some people then salt load, take the salt out and then put it back again in the morning. There's so many different things to do, and there's a lot going on at once. And I would say also it's good to try all these things, but I wouldn't try them all at the same time. Just every single show you do, just try something else, and if it's not working for you, get rid of it. And if it does work for you, keep it, So, you just got to be very, very careful. But hopefully, these videos will help you out a little bit. Just be careful in that last week and don't mess it up.